He was just making a delivery, a signature on a tablet, that was all. But when Michael Connor stepped into the CEO's open doorway at 6:42 p.m., he saw the one thing that would shatter two lives. Michael Connor, a single father of two, kept that secret for 117 days. He delivered packages, he paid his bills, and he watched from a distance as the company's founder, CEO Elise Thorne, unraveled. Her picture-perfect empire began to publicly crack, while privately she was being destroyed by the one question she couldn't answer. What did the delivery man see? And why was he waiting to tell her? His life was a math problem. Michael Connor woke at 4:45 a.m., 6 days a week. He calculated minutes to get his son, Leo, to kindergarten and his daughter, Mia, to the bus stop before his first delivery shift at 7. He calculated dollars for groceries, for the leaky roof, for the used car that always needed one more repair. At 32, his world was measured in miles driven and packages delivered for CourierFlex, a uniform of brown polyester and relentless forward motion. The past was a locked box. Before the uniform, there was a suit. Before the delivery truck, there was a corner office. A partnership at a decent marketing firm, a suburban house, a marriage. Then the recession, the layoffs, the slow-motion collapse of what he thought was a stable life. His wife Claire left 2 years ago, seeking something less fraught than a life built on sand. The divorce decree left him with the kids, the debt, and a single non-negotiable directive: provide. So he drove. He learned every office building in the city's financial district, its loading docks, its security guards. He became a ghost in the machinery of commerce, invisible by design. Elise Thorne was the opposite of invisible. At 28, she was the youngest founder to take her tech startup, Viridian Dynamics, public in a decade. Her face was on magazine covers, a symbol of a new, empathetic brand of leadership. She preached radical transparency, open floor plans, and corporate kinship. Her net worth was listed at $170 million, but the image was engineered. Viridian's stock price, after a meteoric rise, had begun a slow, troubling slide. Whispers about internal turmoil, about a key product failing, had started to leak to the business press. The pressure to maintain the facade was immense, and at the center of that pressure was her husband and chief operations officer, David Thorne. Their marriage was part of the brand, the brilliant, beautiful power couple building an empire together. They were photographed at galas, in interviews on their rooftop terrace, the picture of modern success. But inside the sleek glass headquarters on Bishop Avenue, a different story was quietly fraying. Michael's regular route included Viridian. He knew the evening receptionist, Linda, who always gave him a peppermint. He knew that the executive floor was mostly empty by 6:30 p.m. That's why the light under the CEO's door that Tuesday evening in March caught his attention. His manifest had one last item, a priority envelope for Elise Thorne, marked legal, urgent. It was 6:42 p.m. The door to the corner office was open a foot. Standard protocol was to leave it with Linda, but she'd already left. He could slide it under the door. He approached, one hand raised to knock, and then he saw them. Not through the door, but reflected perfectly in the dark, polished surface of a minimalist bookshelf against the far wall. Elise Thorne was there, but she was not alone. And what she was doing was not a business meeting. It was an intimate, desperate embrace with a man who was very clearly not her husband, David. But it was the man's identity that froze the air in Michael's lungs. It was James Alden, the silver-haired, fiercely moralistic chairman of Viridian's board of directors, the man frequently quoted in the press as the company's ethical compass. The scene was a silent, devastating tableau of betrayal, not just of a marriage, but of every principle the company claimed to stand for. Michael didn't make a sound, he didn't breathe. He took one step back, then another. The priority envelope felt like a brick in his hand. He turned and walked, his boots silent on the plush carpet, back to the freight elevator. He descended to the loading dock, climbed into his truck, and drove away. He didn't process it, he just stored it. Another piece of invisible data. He went home, helped Mia with her fractions, read Leo a story about trucks, and said nothing. The secret became a cold stone in his gut. He had no stake in this. It was not his business. Getting involved in the personal wreckage of the wealthy was a luxury he could not afford. A man with his financial fragility could be shattered by a single lawsuit, a whisper of defamation. So he made his decision. He would forget it. But the world wouldn't let him. The very next day, business headlines blared. Viridian Dynamics COO David Thorne takes sudden leave of absence. The official statement cited personal health reasons. The financial blogs buzzed with theories. Then, a week later, a paparazzi photo surfaced of a haggard-looking David Thorne leaving a well-known divorce attorney's office. The power couple narrative combusted overnight. Viridian's stock dropped another 8%, and Elise Thorne began to change. Michael saw it on his deliveries. The CEO who once smiled and waved was gone, replaced by a pale, tense woman moving through her offices like a ghost. Her eyes, once sharp and commanding, held a hollow, hunted look. The company's internal culture soured. Layoffs were announced. The facade was crumbling and everyone could see it. For Michael, the secret transformed from a stone to a live wire. Every news segment, every gossip item about the Thornes' crumbling marriage, electrocuted him with the truth he alone possessed. He knew the why behind the collapse. He knew the specific, catastrophic hypocrisy that had likely detonated the marriage and was now poisoning the company. The pressure to speak warred violently with the instinct to survive. What good would telling do? It would ruin Alden, destroy whatever was left of Elise, and bury Viridian. It would also paint a target on his own back. He had kids to feed, so he stayed silent for 117 days. Then on a humid Tuesday in July, his phone buzzed with an unknown number. He let it go to voicemail. After his shift, he listened. The voice was strained, stripped of all its usual media-trained polish. It was barely a whisper. "Mr. Connor, this is Elise Thorne. You delivered to my office. I need to know what you saw, please. I am losing my mind not knowing. Meet me, the diner on the corner of 5th and Mercer, tomorrow, 7 a.m., please." The message ended. Michael sat in his silent truck, the weight of those 117 days crushing down on him. He had the answer that could end her torment or complete her destruction. He looked at the photo of Leo and Mia stuck to his dashboard. The right thing was no longer clear, but the next morning at 6:55, he pushed open the door to the diner. She was already there in a corner booth, staring into a coffee cup as if it held the ruins of her life. The polished CEO was gone. This woman wore a wrinkled white blouse, her blonde hair in a messy knot. Mascara was smudged under her eyes, not from crying, but from a sleepless, relentless erosion. She didn't look up as Michael slid into the seat across from her. The air between them crackled with everything unsaid. He spoke first, his voice low. "You shouldn't have called me." "I had no one else to call," she said, her gaze finally lifting to meet his. The desperation there was a physical force. 117 days. I have counted everyone since the night David saw something. He won't tell me what, he just left. He took files, he hired the most aggressive lawyer in the city, and he looks at me like I'm a stranger he wants to destroy, and I don't know why. Her words tumbled out, a dam breaking. The only thing that changed that night was you. You were there, you had a delivery. I saw the log. Your scanner pinged at my door at 6:42 p.m. What did you see when that door was open? Michael's mind raced. He could lie. He could say he saw nothing, that the door was closed. He could walk away and let this rich woman's tragedy play out without him. But her eyes held a raw, human wreckage that transcended money and power. It was the same look he'd seen in the mirror after Claire left. "You'll wish you didn't know," he said quietly. "I already wish that, but not knowing is killing me. It's killing my company. My employees are terrified. The board is planning a vote of no confidence. Tell me, please." He took a breath, the secret he'd carried now a creature demanding to be born. It was James Alden. Elise flinched as if struck. The color drained completely from her face. "James? No, that's impossible. He's like a father. He's the chairman. He's..." Her protest died as she read the utter certainty in Michael's expression. What was he doing? He was holding you, and you were holding him back. It wasn't casual. It looked like a goodbye, a painful one. Michael chose his words with surgical care, delivering the fact without the judgment. A harsh, broken sound escaped Elise's lips. She looked out the diner window, her shoulders trembling. A goodbye, she repeated, the words hollow. Then she began to laugh, a soft, terrifying sound devoid of any humor. Oh my God, of course. Of course that's what he saw. Your husband. David, he must have been coming back to the office. He'd forgotten his tablet. He must have seen the same thing you did. She turned back, her eyes now blazing with a furious, clarifying pain. But you have it backwards. You think you saw a secret affair. You didn't. You saw the end of one. The statement hung in the air, a complete recalibration of the story. Michael sat back, stunned. The end. 2 years, Elise said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. James Alden has been blackmailing me. The word landed like a bomb on the Formica table. It didn't start like that. It started with mentorship, then with support when the product delays began, then with loans to cover cash flow gaps he helped create. He owns a 17% stake, but he wanted control, total control. When I refused to hand him the reins, the pressure turned personal. He had photos from a charity gala, moments taken out of context. He threatened to send them to David, to the board, to the press, to frame them as proof I was unstable, unfit to lead. She took a shuddering breath. That night in my office, I finally confronted him. I told him I was done. I was going to tell David everything, go to the board, take the scandal. I was sobbing. He came over, he put his hands on my shoulders. It was a threat disguised as comfort, he said. Think of what you'll lose, Elise, everything. And I was so tired, I just collapsed into him. For a second, that's the moment you saw. That's the moment David must have seen from the hallway. Not the start of an affair. The climax of 2 years of psychological warfare. Michael's world tilted. The simple story of infidelity was gone, replaced by a far darker tale of corporate predation. You have proof of the blackmail. It's all circumstantial. The loans were through shell companies. The photos are ambiguous. He's the venerable chairman. I'm the emotional young female CEO. Who would they believe? She leaned forward, her intensity scalding. But you are a witness. You saw the dynamic. You heard nothing, but you saw the coercion in it. You are the one piece of proof that isn't on a spreadsheet. Panic, cold, and immediate flooded Michael's system. No, I am not getting involved in this. I have children. This man, if he's what you say he is, he will erase me to protect himself. He already is, Elise said flatly. She pulled out her phone, tapped the screen, and slid it across the table. It showed a grainy security still from a parking garage. It was Michael from 2 days prior loading his truck. The timestamp was clear. The photo was from a private investigator's report. The client code was redacted, but the purpose was clear. Subject under routine surveillance. He's been having you followed since the day after David left, Elise whispered. He knew someone else was there that night. He's been trying to identify you. He found you a week ago. The walls of the diner seemed to close in. The safe, anonymous life he'd built was already a fiction. James Alden knew his face, his truck, his routine, his children's routine. The cold stone in his gut turned to pure ice. Why are you telling me this? Because you're already in it, and because I am begging you. Help me prove it. Help me expose him before he takes my company and destroys me completely. You're the only person who stands between that man and total control of a $2 billion empire. It was an impossible ask, a delivery driver against a corporate titan. Yet the photo on the phone proved his neutrality was an illusion. He was a player on the board whether he wanted to be or not. What could I possibly do? A spark of her old, strategic self flickered in Elise's eyes. He doesn't know what you saw, only that you were there. He'll want to know what you know. He'll approach you, to feel you out, to threaten you, to buy your silence. When he does, we record it. We get him to admit something, anything about that night. We use his own confidence against him. It was a dangerous, almost suicidal plan. But the alternative was to wait for Alden's move, which, given the surveillance, would not be friendly. Michael thought of Leo and Mia. Would they be safer if he ran or if he fought? He had no good options, only catastrophic and slightly less catastrophic. "If I do this," he said, each word heavy, "you protect my family. No matter what happens, you get them out of the city if this goes bad." "On my life," Elise said, and for the first time he believed her. The pact was made in a cloud of coffee steam and shared desperation. Michael left the diner first, the morning sun feeling alien and hostile. He drove his route mechanically, every car in his rearview mirror a potential threat. The paranoia was a living thing. That evening, as he helped Mia with her homework, his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Mr. Connor, your dedication to your route is admirable. We should discuss your long-term prospects. Meet me tomorrow." The members' lounge at the Oak Hill Country Club, 4 p.m. J.A. The hook was set. James Alden was making his move. Michael took a screenshot and sent it to the secure number Elise had given him. Her reply was instant. "Do not go. It's a trap. He'll never say anything incriminating there. We need him on our ground." But Michael was done reacting. A quiet, long-dormant anger was awakening. This man had threatened his children's safety by simply looking at them through a telephoto lens. "I'm going," he texted back, but not to talk, to send a message. The Oak Hill Country Club was a fortress of old money and green velvet. Michael, in his only slightly better-than-work khakis and button-down, felt like a trespasser. A discreet attendant led him to a secluded lounge overlooking the golf course. James Alden sat in a wingback chair, a tumbler of amber liquor in his hand. He was silver-haired, tan, with the calm, affable demeanor of a man who had never been told no in his life. "Michael, thank you for coming. Please sit." His smile was warm, his eyes were glaciers. "Can I get you a drink?" "No, thank you," Michael said, remaining standing. "You wanted to discuss my prospects." "Straight to it, I like that." Alden took a slow sip. "I make it a point to know the people who service my investments. Your file is interesting. Former marketing executive, fallen on hard times. A real shame. A man with your background shouldn't be driving a truck." "It pays the bills." "Barely, I'd imagine. I'd like to make you a proposition. A one-time payment, $100,000, in cash, in exchange for you resigning from CourierFlex and relocating to, say, the Pacific Northwest. A fresh start for you and your lovely children." The bluntness was breathtaking. It wasn't a bribe to stay silent. It was a purchase of his entire life, with an implied threat woven through it. "I know where your children go to school." Michael met the older man's gaze. He didn't blink. That's a lot of money to avoid a delivery guy. Alden's smile tightened. "Let's not play games. You were at Veridian on the night of March 12th. You saw something that has caused considerable distress. I want that memory to become distant. I want you to become distant." "What if I don't want to move?" "Then," Alden said, placing his glass down with a soft, final click, "I cannot guarantee the narrative that will develop around you. A man with your financial pressures, his access to high-value office buildings, it wouldn't be difficult for certain security discrepancies to be traced back to you. Theft of data, or worse. Your past provides a compelling motive. It would be tragic." It was the threat laid bare. Frame him for corporate espionage. Destroy what was left of his reputation, land him in prison, leave his children parentless. Michael felt a surge of cold rage. He leaned forward, placing his hands on the rich wood of the chair opposite Alden. "Listen carefully, Mr. Alden," he said, his voice barely above a whisper but vibrating with intensity. "I have nothing left to lose that you haven't already targeted. You threaten my children again, even by implication, and I will stop being the delivery man you've been following. I will become the problem you cannot buy, cannot frame, and cannot predict. I will walk into the SEC and the Wall Street Journal, and I will tell them exactly what I saw in that office. And I will describe the look on Elise Thorne's face not as passion, but as terror. Do we understand each other?" The glacial calm in Alden's eyes fractured, replaced by a flash of pure, surprised malice. He had expected fear, negotiation. He had not expected a counterassault. For the first time, he was silent. Michael straightened up. The answer is no, I'm not moving. I'm not resigning. And if anything suspicious happens to me or my family, my lawyer has instructions to release a full statement. Have a good afternoon. He turned and walked out, his heart hammering against his ribs. He had just declared war. He was 2 blocks away, hands shaking on the wheel when Elise called. What happened? What did he say? He threatened to frame me for theft if I didn't take a bribe and disappear. I threatened him back. Michael, that was too dangerous. He's not a man who takes threats lightly. I know, Michael said, pulling into his driveway. The familiar sight of his modest home usually brought calm. Now it looked like a vulnerable target. That's why we have to move faster. He's off balance. We need to push. What's his weakness? Elise was silent for a moment. His son, Peter Alden. He runs the family's philanthropic foundation. He's decent. James's entire legacy obsession is about passing a pristine empire to Peter. If Peter knew the truth about how his father really operates. Can you get to him? I can try. He's always been kind to me. He might listen. She paused. Michael, be careful. You rattled him. He will retaliate. He ended the call and walked into his house. The living room was dark, too quiet. Mia, Leo, no answer. A primal fear colder than any he'd ever felt seized him. He rushed to the kitchen. Empty. The backyard, empty. He was fumbling for his phone to call the sitter when he heard a small giggle from the hall closet. He yanked the door open. Leo and Mia tumbled out, laughing. We were hiding, Leo shouted. The relief was so profound it made him dizzy. He scooped them both into a crushing hug. It was a childish game, but in his paranoid state, it felt like a rehearsal for a nightmare. He couldn't live like this. He had to end it. The next morning, as Michael prepped his truck, a black sedan pulled up silently to the curb. Not Alden style, this was too direct. The rear window slid down. Inside was a man with a stern, lined face. He flashed a badge. Michael Connor, I'm Detective Bryson, Financial Crimes. We need you to come down to the station. We have some questions regarding the theft of proprietary data from Viridian Dynamics. Alden's retaliation had begun, and it was swifter and far more official than Michael had ever imagined. The interrogation room was a gray box designed to induce despair. Detective Bryson laid out photographs on the steel table, images of a server room at Viridian, a maintenance panel pried open, wires dangling. This was discovered at 3 a.m. this morning. A sophisticated data tap installed to intercept real-time financial projections, the kind of information that moves stock prices. Michael stared numb. I don't know what that is. Security logs show your keycard was used to access the service elevator leading to that sublevel at 10:18 p.m. last Tuesday, after your scheduled shift. That's impossible. I was home. My kids were with me. The digital log says otherwise. Bryson slid another paper, a grainy black and white still from a hallway camera, a figure in a Courier Flex uniform, cap pulled low, head down, swiping a card. The timestamp was clear. The figure had Michael's build, his posture. It was convincing. We also found this in a dumpster 2 blocks from your house. He produced a clear evidence bag. Inside was a small, sophisticated electronic device, along with a brown Courier Flex uniform shirt, identical to Michael, with his employee number embroidered on the chest. The frame was airtight. Digital evidence, physical evidence, motive. Alden hadn't just threatened, he had constructed a reality. Michael's mind raced. The key card. He reported his card missing 3 weeks ago after dropping his wallet at a gas station. Courier Flex had issued a replacement. The old one should have been deactivated. Clearly, it hadn't been. The uniform shirt. Anyone with access to the laundry service could have stolen one, but explaining that felt hopeless. He was in the belly of a machine, designed to grind him into dust. I want a lawyer, he said, his voice flat. That's your right. Bryson leaned back. But you should know, Mr. Connor, the DA is looking at industrial espionage. That's a federal charge, 5 to 10 years. Your children would be wards of the state. The words were a physical blow. He saw Leo and Mia in a sterile social worker's office, their world ripped apart. The panic was a screaming static in his head. He closed his eyes, forcing himself to think. Alden wanted him silent and gone. A public arrest and a long trial would keep him very much in the spotlight, a loose cannon. That didn't fit. Unless... "You're not really going to charge me," Michael said, opening his eyes. Bryson's eyebrow twitched. "Excuse me. This is too neat. It's a message. Arrest me, scare me, then offer me a way out. The bribe is still on the table, right? I take the money, disappear, and miraculously the evidence has a problem. The case falls apart. That's the play. So let's skip to the part where you tell me what I have to do to make this go away." The detective's expression shifted, the professional mask slipping for a fraction of a second to reveal cold calculation. He hadn't expected Michael to see the strings. Just then, the door opened. A woman in a sharp suit entered, followed by a uniformed officer. "Interview terminated, detective. My client has invoked his right to counsel. I'll be taking him now." It was Lara Chen, a bulldog of a defense attorney Elise had retained on standby the moment Michael texted about the meeting. Her arrival was swift and brutal. She cited procedural errors, demanded the evidence log, and within 45 minutes had Michael released on his own recognizance, the charges hanging over him like a guillotine. Outside the precinct in her car, she turned to him. "They have a case. A good one. It's fabricated, but it's good. James Alden has a judge in his pocket. You cannot talk to anyone without me present." "What do I do?" "We fight. We find the flaw in their fabrication. We start with the keycard log. If it was deactivated, there's a system record. We find it." Her phone buzzed. She looked at it, her face tightening. "We also have another problem. The story just leaked to Business Insider. Delivery driver arrested in Veridian data theft scheme. Your name, your photo, your past bankruptcy. It's live." The public shamming had begun. By the time Michael got home, his phone was blowing up with calls from numbers he didn't know. Reporters. He turned it off. The sitter, a college student named Chloe, looked terrified. Some people came by, men in suits. They said they were from corporate security, checking on employee welfare. They asked a lot of questions about your schedule, about the kids. Michael paid her double and sent her home in a taxi. He locked the doors, pulled the blinds, and sat on the floor with his children, telling them a story about a night in a very complicated castle. He felt the walls of his life collapsing inward. At that same moment, Elise Thorne was making her own move. She walked into the quarterly board meeting, not at the Veridian headquarters, but at a neutral law firm. The 10 members of the board, including James Alden, were seated around a long mahogany table. Alden gave her a thin, paternal smile. "Elise, given the circumstances of the data breach and the arrest, I think it's best if we begin with a discussion of interim leadership." Elise didn't sit. She placed a small digital recorder on the table and pressed play. The audio from the diner, her voice, strained and clear. "For 2 years, James Alden has been blackmailing me." She let it play for 30 seconds, the room frozen in shock, before stopping it. Alden's face was a mask of outraged dignity. "This is a desperate and slanderous fabrication. The emotional distress of losing her husband has clearly—" "I have the financial records," Elise interrupted, her voice like steel. "The shell company loans, the timed product delays that corresponded with your liquidity calls, and I have a witness. The delivery driver you just had arrested. He will testify to the nature of our interaction in my office on March 12th. It was not an affair. It was me breaking down after 2 years of coercion." The room erupted. Alden slammed his hand on the table. "This is fantasy. The man is a convicted felon." It was a bluff, but a powerful one. "He has no record," Elise shot back. "You know that. You're trying to silence him because he saw the truth. I move for an immediate, independent audit of all board member transactions with Veridian over the last 36 months. And I move for James Alden to be suspended as chairman pending its outcome. The vote was a brutal split decision, 5-5. Alden's influence was deep, but Elise had planted a seed of irreversible doubt. The meeting adjourned in chaos. As Alden stormed out, he turned to Elise, his voice a low, venomous hiss only she could hear. "You have no idea what you've started. You think this is about a company. This is about legacy, and I will burn yours to the ground to protect mine." That night, Michael's doorbell rang. He peered through the peephole, expecting more police or reporters. Instead, he saw a man in his 30s looking anxious, holding a manila envelope. It was Peter Alden. Cautiously, Michael opened the door. "What do you want?" "I want to talk 5 minutes, please." Peter's eyes were red-rimmed, his expression one of profound shame. Michael let him in. Peter didn't sit. He thrust the envelope at Michael. "My father had your children followed. He had a dossier compiled. School routes, friends' houses, the sitter's name. I found it on his home server. I copied it. I deleted his copies." Michael's blood ran cold. He took the envelope, the contents confirming his worst fears. "Why are you giving this to me?" "Because what he's doing to you, it's what he's always done. To competitors, to partners, to my mother." Peter's voice broke. "The philanthropic foundation I run, it's a laundering front for his hostile takeovers, for his payoffs. I've spent my life polishing a statue that's rotten inside. I heard the recording Elise played today. I believe her. He's been manipulating her, squeezing her, waiting for her to break so he could install a puppet CEO. My father doesn't want to run Veridian. He wants to cannibalize it, sell off the IP, fire the staff, collect the insurance. He's done it before." The revelation was a seismic shift. This wasn't just about power or silencing a witness. It was about asset stripping. Alden wasn't trying to save Veridian. He was planning to kill it for parts. Elise was just the final obstacle. "You need to go to the authorities," Michael said. "With what? He owns the authorities here. You need to go public, all of it. The blackmail, the frame-up, the plans for Veridian. You need a platform he can't control." "And say what? A delivery driver and a disgruntled CEO against James Alden. We'd be laughed out of the room." "Not if you have proof he can't explain." Peter pulled a small USB drive from his pocket. "This is from his private encrypted server. It contains the original undoctored security footage from Veridian's executive floor for March 12th. The version the police have is edited. This one shows the full 5 minutes. It shows him following her into the office. It shows her backing away. It shows her distress. It shows you at the door, frozen, for only 3 seconds before you leave. It proves your story. It proves hers." Michael took the drive, a tiny sliver of hope in his palm. "This could put your father in prison." Peter nodded, tears finally spilling over. "I know it's time." He left as quietly as he came. Michael called Elise. "We have it, the original footage from Peter Alden." Her breath caught. "Peter, my God, does James know?" "Not yet, but he will. We need to move. Now, we take this to the one place he can't bury it." "Where?" "The national press, not the business desks, the investigative desks. We give them the whole story, the blackmail, the framed job, the plans to liquidate Veridian and the son turning against the father. We blow the whole damn thing open." It was the nuclear option. There would be no coming back from it for anyone, but the careful game of corporate chess was over. It was time for war in the open. As they finalized their plan, Michael's lawyer, Lara Chen, called. Her voice was tight with urgency. "Michael, get out of the house. Now, I just got a tip from a friendly cop. Alden knows Peter visited you. He's panicking. He's dispatched private security to retrieve stolen property. They're not coming to talk." Michael looked at his children asleep in their rooms. The safe, anonymous life was gone forever. He woke them gently, whispering, "We're going on a little adventure, okay?" He packed a single bag, took the USB drive, the dossier on his kids, and fled into the night. The final battle for the truth would not be fought in boardrooms or police stations. It would be fought in the blinding light of day, with millions watching. And Michael Connor, the invisible delivery man, was now the most important witness in the country. For 48 hours, they lived in a silent, tense bubble. A motel room 2 towns over, paid for with cash Elise had handed Michael in a sealed envelope at the diner. The children thought it was a camping trip. Michael watched every car that passed. The USB drive felt like a live grenade in his pocket. His lawyer, Lara Chen, had connected them with an investigative reporter from the Financial Chronicle, a woman named Anya Sharma with a reputation for taking down powerful men. The meeting was set for a secure location, the public library's private study room. Anya listened, stone-faced, as Elise laid out the 2-year campaign of coercion. She watched the unedited security footage on her laptop, her eyes narrowing at the clear body language of intimidation. She read the dossier on Michael's children, her lips tightening. Then Michael played the recording from his phone, the clandestine audio of his country club confrontation with Alden, where the threat was laid bare. When it was over, Anya closed her laptop. This isn't a business story. This is a story about kidnapping, fraud, and witness intimidation with a $2 billion backdrop. We go big. We go tomorrow. My editors are already cleared. The story exploded at 6 a.m. Eastern Time. The headline was brutal. The Chairman's Trap, how James Alden held a CEO hostage. It laid out everything. The blackmail, the financial manipulation, the framing of Michael Connor, the plans to dismantle Veridian and the Sun's defection. The unedited footage was posted as a companion video. The difference was stark. In Alden's edited version, the encounter looked intimate. In the full version, you could see Elise Thorne shrinking back. You could see Alden's grip on her arms. You could see the terror on her face. And you could see Michael Connor, a frozen silhouette in the doorway, for 3 unambiguous seconds before he turned and left. The public perception flipped in an instant. By 9 a.m., the Securities and Exchange Commission announced a formal investigation into James Alden and the Veridian board. By 10 a.m., the State Attorney General opened a criminal probe into witness intimidation and falsifying evidence. By 11 a.m., Veridian stock was halted pending news. The board of directors, in a panicked emergency session, voted unanimously to remove James Alden as chairman and suspend all his voting rights. They reinstated Elise Thorne with full authority to cooperate with investigations. At noon, surrounded by lawyers, James Alden surrendered to federal authorities. The perp walk was broadcast live. The silver-haired titan, now handcuffed, his face a mask of furious disbelief, was led into a building. He was charged with 13 counts, including securities fraud, wire fraud, extortion, and conspiracy to commit kidnapping, the latter stemming from the threat inherent in the surveillance of Michael's children. The case against Michael evaporated by 2 p.m. The district attorney, facing a media firestorm and the revelation of falsified keycard logs, held a press conference to announce the charges were being dropped in the interest of justice. A formal apology was issued. It didn't erase the stain on his name, but it unlocked the cage. Michael returned home with Leo and Mia. The house felt different, lighter but also exposed. The story was everywhere. Neighbors looked at him with a mix of awe and wariness. He was no longer invisible. 2 weeks later, he was summoned to the Veridian headquarters, not to the loading dock, but to the executive floor. The office where it began had been repainted, the furniture replaced. Elise Thorne stood by the window, back in a sharp suit, but the hardness in her eyes had softened into something like weary resilience. "It's over," she said. "He's out on $10 million bail, but he'll never work again. The plea deals are already being discussed. He'll likely serve 8 to 10 years. And Veridian. Wounded but salvageable, the stock is recovering, the board is purged, we're rebuilding." She turned to him. "I owe you my company, my sanity, possibly my life." Michael shook his head. "You paid me back, you kept your word, you protected my kids when it mattered." "It's not enough." She handed him a simple white envelope. Inside was not a check but a formal offer letter. The title was Director of Ethical Security and Logistics, a newly created position. "I need someone who understands how the machinery actually works," Elise explained. "Not from a boardroom, but from the ground up. Someone who can see the cracks, who knows what pressure looks like on a human face. You would oversee physical and data security, vendor contracts, internal whistleblower protocols. The salary is substantial. You'd never worry about a roof or a college fund again." Michael read the letter, the numbers making him dizzy. It was a lifeline to a stability he'd never known, a chance to use the skills he'd honed in survival for something constructive. "I don't have the degree for this." "You have a doctorate in seeing what others miss. That's what I need." She smiled, a real one this time. "The uniform is optional." He took the job. But the story had one final, private twist. A month after he started at Veridian, a package arrived at his new apartment. No return address. Inside was a simple, expensive pen and a note on thick cardstock. The handwriting was precise, angry. "You were a delivery man. You should have just delivered the package. You changed nothing. The game continues, just with different players." It was unsigned, but the meaning was clear. Alden, from his gilded confinement, was sending a message. The victory was not absolute. The system that created him was still there. Michael didn't throw the note away. He framed it. He hung it in his new office at Veridian, right beside the offer letter from Elise. A reminder that vigilance was not a one-time act, but a habit. He threw himself into the work, designing transparent systems, creating safe channels for employees to report problems without fear. He became the guardian of the truth he had almost been destroyed for uncovering. A year later, on the anniversary of the diner meeting, Elise invited him for coffee. Not at the diner, but at a park near his children's school. They sat on a bench, watching Leo and Mia on the swings. "David reached out," she said quietly. "He saw the footage, the real footage. He apologized for not asking, for assuming. We're talking." Slowly. "I'm glad," Michael said and meant it. "Are you," she asked, looking at him, "glad you stepped into my doorway?" He watched his daughter push his son on the swing, their laughter carrying on the wind. He thought of the fear, the interrogation room, the night of fleeing. He thought of the motel room and the profound relief of the charges dropping. He thought of the purpose he now carried to work every day. "Yes," he said, "but not for the reason you think. I'm glad because it proved to my kids that their dad stands up, even when he's scared. That's the only legacy that matters." Elise nodded, understanding. The two of them, from utterly different worlds, had been forged in the same fire. One to lead a company with a new conscience, the other to build a life of unshakable integrity. The secret that began in a corporate doorway had been delivered, and in its telling had set them both free. The final, surprising truth was this: the man who was paid to deliver packages had ended up delivering justice. So what is the real story here? Is it a corporate thriller, a tale of blackmail and betrayal at the highest level, or is it something simpler and far more profound? It is the story of a single, fragile thread, the thread of a man doing his job, stepping into a doorway at the wrong moment, or perhaps the only moment that mattered. It is about the weight of a secret and the heavier weight of finally setting it down. Michael Connor and Elise Thorne existed in separate worlds, operating on different planes of power and worry. Their lives were not supposed to intersect in any meaningful way. Yet one silent witness, one decision not to look away, wove their fates together into a tapestry of consequence that brought down a giant. This narrative reveals a hidden architecture of power. It shows us that the most dangerous corruption is not the loud, obvious crime, but the quiet, systemic one. The kind dressed in a tailored suit, speaking in boardroom platitudes while its hands work in the shadows. James Alden did not see a person in Michael Connor. He saw a variable to be controlled, an obstacle to be removed. In that fundamental miscalculation, he planted the seed of his own downfall, because people are not variables. They are stories waiting to be told. The lingering question is not about the past, but the future. How many other doorways hold silent witnesses? How many other delivery drivers, assistants, Night cleaners and maintenance workers carry fragments of truth that could recalibrate entire industries. We live in a world of vast, opaque structures, but they are manned, serviced, and seen by human eyes. The most powerful security system in the world cannot account for a conscience. The story of Veridian is a case study in that fragile human element, the element that algorithms cannot predict and money cannot always buy. For Michael, the victory was not in a title or a salary. It was in the restoration of agency. He moved from being a man things happened to a man who made things happen. For Elise, it was the reclamation of a vision from a parasite. She did not just save her company, she purified its intent. Together, they proved that integrity is not a passive trait, but a series of active, difficult choices. The note from Alden that Michael keeps framed is not a trophy of defeat, but a compass. It points toward the endless need for vigilance, for the understanding that the fight to keep systems honest is never truly finished. We are left then with a simple but powerful idea. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision that something else, truth, justice, the safety of the innocent, is more important than that fear. It is the moment a delivery man decides to speak and a CEO decides to listen. It is the moment a son decides his father's legacy is a lie he will no longer uphold. These are the moments that change worlds, both large and small. They remind us that history is not just made by the people on the stage, but by those in the wings who finally step into the light. Subscribe if you believe the most compelling stories are not written in scripts, but in the quiet, brave choices of ordinary people. Subscribe if you believe that sometimes the most important delivery a person can make is the truth.